This to make it 28-3. Arthur Blank loving it. Up by 25. Toss to White. He's in. What a comeback.
All right, welcome back to the 28-3 podcast. I'm Corey. You're here with Max. Nick will not be joining us tonight, but he has sent in his picks. We're doing this one remote. Saints versus Commanders, so we're going to give you all our thoughts, predictions, and offensive MVPs, all that good stuff in this one. And, of course, my locks are going to return once again. So, Max, what you got in this one?
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and start off with Nick's predictions. So he texted these in. Pretty straightforward. I have a feeling it's going to be aligned with what you and I think, but we'll find out. Nick is predicting Washington to win 30-13. So you got your pen ready to write these down?
Yep. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, don't forget you're gonna have to add, but I guess you don't have to add yet. We can wait until next week and let Nick do all the additions.
Yeah, we already did our tally on the last episode, but you're at 10, Nick's at 12, I'm at 7.
Okay.
So
Nick is Washington 30, Saints 13.
All right.
His offensive MVP, Alvin Kamara.
Okay.
Big shocker there, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, one of two people, or who else are you going to choose, right?
I mean, he's kind of one of one at this point, unless MVS goes crazy again and gets lucky. He says Kamara is going to have 100 yards, 6 catches. Does not specify a touchdown. So,
did you say total yards or rushing?
It just says 100 yards, so we'll call it total yards.
We'll
I guess.
Write it down, and
Yeah, total yards, I would assume.
And 6 catches.
6 catches, yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know, man. I mean, kind of a one-man show at this point.
I'm not saying he won't have 6 catches. I'm just saying that to just kind of pull that out as the stat. But, if we're going for certainty.
Yeah. Defensive MVP, he's got Brian Brzee with a sack. So I like that one. Brzee's kind of in the hot hand, so I think that one makes a lot of sense. Same thing for Kamara. I mean, there's really no other option at this point, unless you're just going to say someone's just going to randomly catch fire. So
yeah, you're either going with the sure bet or you're kind of rolling the dice on who it could be if it's not the sure bet.
Yeah, exactly. Who do you have? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking, all right. I mean, you can't predict a win for us in this one. The deck's just too stacked against us. The Commanders are just too good. Of course, too, the Commanders coming off a bye. So not only did they just crush the last inferior opponent they played, they got a week to rest up just in case they had any injuries to get healthy from. So I'm going to go Commanders win. I'm not going to go as far as the 30-13 that Nick's calling for. That's certainly possible. I'm going to go with a 28-17 Commanders win over the Saints. Let me write that down before I forget. And my offensive MVP, I mean, obviously I want to go with AK as well, but I'm going to throw a curveball. We're going to roll the dice in this one. Out of left field, I'm going to go with Foster Moreau.
Ooh. Okay.
Because, I mean, look, it's either – this is the – okay, if it's not going to be AK, it could be literally anybody. I'm going with Foster. He's kind of come up a little bit more the past couple of weeks, and I think they're going to have a decent ability to shut down the receivers. Unless it's MVS, I don't see any other receiver coming out of the woodwork. I think – and if it's not going to be AK, that means they're shutting down our running game and our pass catching out of the backfield. But Foster's one of those who can sneak out, grab a touchdown, maybe 2, depending on the situation, and just be Johnny on the spot, third down conversions when we actually need him. So give me Foster with, I'm going to say 6 catches for Foster.
All right. Any tutties?
Give me 1 touchdown for Foster.
Okay.
And, yeah, it's hard to say yardage, but I'm going to say 6 receptions since Nick got to do that, and 1 touchdown. And my Defensive MVP in this one is and Nick's taking all my good ones here.
It's okay to pick the same ones.
Yeah. But I'm gonna go with DeMario in this one. I think he had a good game last week. He's gonna keep it going here. There's gonna be a lot of stuff up front for him to clean up in this one between Robinson tailback, Jaden on scrambles, maybe some short passes from Jaden that DeMario is gonna get the tackle on, maybe come up with another interception. But overall, I think DeMario racks up the tackles. Give me 9 tackles in this one. 1 tackle for loss. Maybe he gets home for a sack. So that's my pick there.
Okay. All right. I am going to pick the Commanders as well. I think this one starts off a little closer than expected, but then gets out of hand. So
Okay.
I'm going to go Commanders 38, Saints 17. I just you want to write that down?
It could be a blowout. Yeah.
So I just feel like, the Commanders feast on bad teams. If you look at their win-loss record this season, they are beating up on the bad teams and they're struggling against the good teams.
Yeah.
So as someone who owns Jaden Daniels in fantasy football, I have to bye this week, so I'm a little upset that I have to, I have him on the bye this week, and then next week he comes back in the second round of the playoffs against the Eagles, who got to shut him down. So
Yeah.
that's a little annoying. But I'm gonna say Kendre Miller is offensive MVP, and my reasoning for this is I think as the game gets out of hand, you're going to see some garbage yardage.
Sure.
So
sure.
since we have seemed to be going with who has the best stat line and who puts up the best performance as opposed to who is truly impacting the game as much on offense, I'm going to go ahead and say Kendre puts up, I'm going to say 100 total yards and a touchdown.
Okay.
So I'll give you a chance to write that down. And then for defensive MVP, Nick took my choice, though. I'm gonna roll with him on this one. I'm gonna say Brian Brzee. I think he's been the only consistent threat on defense over the last couple of weeks. I don't think Jaden Daniels will throw an interception. He's been very careful with the ball. He really doesn't turn the ball over very often. But I do think Brzee will apply pressure in the middle, and I think he'll get a sack.
Okay.
But all in all, I think last week's performance was not a good performance as a whole. We just happened to be playing a team that was shittier than us, which is amazing at this point. Given the mass amount of injuries we've suffered. We really should have lost that game last week. The way it was going in the last couple of minutes, I honestly think that if Brzee doesn't block that field goal, that game goes to overtime and we find a way to lose.
It wasn't looking good for us in overtime. I mean, the defense just, I heard some people saying like, hey, the defense overall, except for like, for 50 something minutes of the game played well. It's like, well, that's well and good. But I mean, they totally just let it crumble at the end. And, but they were still getting,
we got to look at the
amount
opponent.
of rushing yards against us. And then the QB scrambles from Drew Lock. I mean, if Lock can do that, then what the hell is Jaden going to do? Now, obviously, you're game planning for it a lot more with Jaden Daniels. Like with the Giants, who knows?
Keep in mind, Daniels is looking to pass first. He's not like, immediately trying to take off. Like he's trying to pass. Now he's going to
he's
run
not immediately trying to take off, but at least
the threat is always there and it's going to happen. Yeah. But at the same point, man, the Saints were playing the possibly the worst team in the league last week. And it was, you beat them. Yay. You beat up the worst or the second worst team in the league, depending on your perspective of the Raiders. Not at all impressive. I didn't think Derek Carr was good last week. The Kamara couldn't do much. The offensive line, they couldn't do much. It just was not a good performance. It just was one of those where we somehow managed not to lose the game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to this one just feels like it's going to get out of hand. We're the exact team that the Commanders feast on. We're a team with a losing record, and this is what the Commanders beat up.
Now, they definitely tracks for the Titans game. If I'm looking for any kind of silver lining here, I'm looking at their past games, and they got 2 that stand out where they only beat the Giants by 5 points when they played in New York. So there's a bad team. They
Did
arguably
Dexter Lawrence play though?
underachieved against.
Did
I mean,
Dexter Lawrence play? That's kind of the key.
um,
He's their best player.
Dexter, yeah, he did.
Yeah, so that makes a big difference. I think if he
Yeah.
would have played last week against us, I think we lose, no question at all.
Yeah,
You were taking one of the best defensive tackles in the league. He was leading the league in sacks by defensive tackles, and he's missed a few games.
Yeah, and it's a division game for them. Like the first time they played the Commanders in Washington, they only beat them by 3, but that was Jaden's second game as a pro. And then, the next time they play them, and then you got the Bears game. They beat the Bears by 3, but that was when Caleb actually was playing pretty kind of decent, and the Bears are going to be up for that game. And you could also make the argument that the Bears are better than the Giants as well.
Well, hold on. There's one thing you and I didn't even touch on, and obviously Nick didn't since he texted his picks in, but we're going to have either Rattler or Haener. It looks like it's going to be Haener starting this week. And, I mean, honestly, that's the biggest factor why we're going to lose. I think we should definitely bring that up real quick. I honestly don't think it matters which one starts. I've been very vocal about my opinion that I do think Rattler has all the potential in the world, and I said this before the season started, I wanted to see him sit on the bench for a full season before we see him. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and we had to see him before he was ready. And, hope he didn't get David Card, as I think Nick or one of y'all said earlier in the season, by all the sacks and all that. So I think this time you got to play Haener, see if there's anything there at all. We really haven't seen Haener. We haven't seen him start a game. It's only been coming in when Rattler got benched or when Carr got hurt. So the Commanders don't have the best defense in the world, but they are adding Marshawn Lattimore this week, and obviously he's going to have a chip on his shoulder and be looking for some payback in his first game as a Commander and his first game back in the Dome. So I don't think we get anything going in the passing game at all. So it's either, to me, it's AK or Kendra. And I just think once he gets out of hand, you'll see Kendra get more carries. I think that's my reasoning.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. And for me, the QB thing, it's like you said, regardless of who starts, I don't see, the quality necessary to even sniff an upset being there from either one. And then assuming nothing else changes between what we saw with Haener, what we saw with Rattler, because Haener came in for that short spurt, at least for me, like, it's nothing against Rattler. Like you said, I believe he's got all the potential in the world. But that dude, just let him go into the offseason, keep developing, keep doing some work, not worry about trying to find a completion between Foster, Jawan, the Pettis, MVS, etc. And Haener, on the other hand, seemed at least a little less afraid to let it fly because, who knows, maybe because he's had that year of experience, even though he didn't really play. Or maybe it's just his mentality at this point. So for purposes of a regular season game that for all intents and purposes is not really meaningful because the playoff chances, like we said, are slim to none, just put in a guy that can at least let the ball out when there's tight coverage. Because with these receivers, at least the last time Rattler was in there, we at least had Olave. We had, you could argue, more receivers that could get separation. So there were more open.
Well, time out. In Rattler's defense, Olave got concussed almost immediately in one of the games. So he really didn't have Olave.
Right. So, but even more, if you had your starting wide receivers that could get separation, make it a little bit easier for Rattler, I might have a different tune. But the fact that you've got these backups who are going to get like a slim, like minimal to no real separation unless it's MVS winning on a double move deep route, put Haener in there to just like at least try to fit it in to small windows, just to hopefully we as fans can see the ball moving down the field for a few series. That's my whole thing on it. I mean,
I think but it's going to be ugly, I think.
Yeah, it's shaping up, has all the makings of being an ugly one. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, as of we're recording this on Thursday. They have not yet made an announcement that I've seen.
Have you seen anything about? Let me look and see if there's been any practice reports of who took snaps and all that. I haven't seen.
As of yesterday, they were splitting. And Rizzi said
Were
they were
they?
splitting.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, here we go. Darren Rizzi has named Jake Haener the starting QB.
Okay, there we go.
19 minutes ago, so we're pretty much right as we started recording.
Breaking news, although not so much breaking because you're probably listening to this a lot more than 19 minutes after it was announced. But breaking news for us as we're recording here. So there you go.
Not that it changes our predictions in the least, but
and also too, given their status, just because Haener's the starter, in no way, shape, or form means that he's guaranteed to finish the game, even if he's not injured. You know?
No, I think you'll see him get 2 full games at the least. I wouldn't be surprised if when we finally do get eliminated from playoff contention, that you see them flip flop and put the other one in. I think right now Rizzi's coaching for his job, as are Kubiak and the rest of the staff. So I think they obviously look at it as Haener gives them the best chance to win because they're trying to win. They're not at all evaluating for 2025 because there's no guarantee that they're going to be here. Yeah. And if they lose this game and the next one, which they should lose, realistically, they're probably not going to be here. And I haven't seen, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really that high on Kubiak's performance this year. It's been solid, but I don't really give a shit if he leaves, and we get a new offensive coordinator in the offseason either.
Yeah. And that honestly has enough levels in it for the makings of a whole episode, because for me it's like he's definitely been better than Carmichael, but is our standard?
Yeah, but that's a low bar, bro.
Is our standard better than Carmichael? Because that's like you said, that's a really low bar. And then the other level for Kubiak, and this might just be to preview the OC position episode we might do, but is that he's kind of like what Nick says. Is he working in this type of game plan? Is it dictated on our personnel? Is he holding back the full reign of Clint's playbook? Because if the full playbook for Clint looks like the first 2 weeks, then that's amazing. And
he better get that full playbook out there if he wants a job. That's kind of how he's got to look at it.
But
he doesn't really have the luxury, because this is going to be his second failed offensive coordinator spot. Stop.
But here's the thing: if you're trying not to look inept as an OC, or if you're trying, you're judged on the results of your offense or the results of the games, the scores. If you put the full playbook in there with guys that can't execute it, does it look even worse? Does it look like a complete dumpster fire if you're like, okay, cool, run this whole full play with Haener under center, AK or Kendre, sure, they're going to be fine. But with those wide receivers, when the routes have to be precise, the motion has to be perfect, you got to line up, somebody's on, somebody's off the line pre-snap. So many different things go wrong in a complex play from Clint that if he runs the full shebang out there, and someone screws up one little thing, then the whole play looks fucked up.
At the end of the day, though, his scheme isn't as complex as you're making it out to be. Because remember, that was the whole. It's pretty. No. That was the whole thing. No, that was the whole thing they talked about in the offseason, was that the Peyton playbook with Carmichael, this shit was way too complex. So what they're doing is, this was a more slimmed down approach. Because remember, Carr talked about it all during the preseason. Right. And the coaches talked about it, where it simplifies things for the quarterback.
But it does for the quarterback. The play calls themselves are shorter. And they are directed more to where the position guy, only have to think about doing your job versus you having to play off of all the other guys on the field just to run a simple play. But it doesn't change the fact that the motions and the timing of the plays, the precision of the routes, that's all still there in Clint's offense per player. So it's more of like, you still got to, I think if he runs out the full playbook, and I hate agreeing with Nick on this one, it looks far worse if it's a full playbook go and we start screwing that up than if we're actually being more conservative at this point. So it's hard. It's hard to judge Clint.
These guys are professionals. And at the end of the day, he's got to pull out all the stops, because if he wants a job anywhere as an offensive coordinator, he's going to have to do better than he's doing. And you can't just trot out there and run the ball straight ahead 4 times and then, you know what I mean? That's not going to fly.
But I think he's capped with what he's got to work with. I don't think he can only do so much as a play caller. I
hear you, but Haener has been through just as much of the install as Carr has. And then,
and he's severely worse as a QB to make just because you've been through the install, the playbook doesn't mean you can execute the playbook like.
Well, we don't know if he's severely worse. We don't know. We can probably assume he is, but we don't know.
How do we not know that?
We haven't seen him play. When have you seen Haener start a game?
Start a game? He didn't get a start yet.
He hasn't started yet. Exactly. When have you seen him play more than a quarter? Where you weren't facing a huge deficit.
Did you need?
No, I mean, I'm just asking you.
Did you need to
don't
see
know.
more than that to know that this season he's worse than Carr?
No, I'm just saying we don't know if maybe he comes in and the light switches on. Now that's about a 1,000,000 to 1 long shot, but it's possible.
We've said Carr's ranked anywhere between 17 and 20.
You're missing the point. My point was, so we talked, everybody would, no, there was the hope with Rattler. Everybody freaked out that week. They're like, oh yeah, okay, here it comes. All the agenda idiots were freaking out. Everybody was excited, myself included, because you want to see what is behind the mystery door.
Right.
So we saw what was behind it with Rattler. But here's the deal. Right. This is the second episode of the mystery door. Let's see what's behind it with Haener. Maybe he can come in and make these passes that, we don't think he can make. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to come in and get blown out on Sunday. But we don't know. So you can't definitively say that Haener's – we've established that Carr is mid and that he's in somewhere between the 17 and 18. What did Nick say, 16, and we said 17?
At the expense of sounding like you and not me, because the roles are reversed here. I'm usually the one saying, hey, you can't just say that. You have to say we can only assume. But I'm going to say that I know Haener's worse than Carr. I'm going to say it. I know it makes more sense to say we can
realistically, you're probably
very
right
safely assume.
No, realistically, that's a safe assumption. But the reality is there is a world where it's an incorrect assumption.
If he's not worse than Carr, then he should be the starter.
I'm gonna tell you right now, and it doesn't matter what happens in this game. He's not gonna do enough for it to be like he should have been starting all along. He's simply not. It doesn't matter what happens in this game. It'd be a 1-game aberration at that point. You got to do it more than once.
Yeah, and it's not out of the realm. We've seen crazier shit happen before in Saints games, but yeah, if he came in there and just like lit it up.
Well, I mean, go back to Aaron Brooks. And you and I used this example when we picked Rattler to win his first start against Tampa. Right. Aaron Brooks been on the team for a short period of time. He was a trade from the Packers. And no one expected him to do a damn thing because he had shown nothing. And it's like he comes in and they beat the defending Super Bowl champions at their home stadium. So you just don't know. You just don't know. Now, you can probably assume, and we'll probably be right by assuming. I mean, there's a reason all three of us picked the Commanders to win. Right. But the reality is there is that minute chance that, hey, maybe he is the guy that can come in and do it. I don't think he is. I think Haener's got a 12-plus year career as a backup quarterback. He'll probably start a game, light it up at some point in the next year or two, get a contract off of it, and ride that contract for another 10 years. Haener's the one, not Haener, Rattler's the one where, the ability is certainly there to be a upper tier starter, but he didn't show shit in the 3 starts. So
he had a rough go of it. And that's the thing. I don't want to, almost for him, I would hate it for him to just have another shitty game. And again,
he's not playing though, so we're not worried about him right now.
I'm saying if it came down to it, if the next game, if it was considered for him to start again in the stretch of games, it just kind of it's not that I don't want to see him. I mean, look, getting on the field in the NFL is nothing anybody should ever take for granted or just assume they'll get another chance to do. So for him, I wouldn't want to see his chance to get on the field as an NFL QB taken away from him. It's not that. It's just that,
I want whoever starts a quarterback for the Saints to be successful. I don't care who it is or what his name is. I want whoever it is to be. I don't care if it's Ben DiNucci, the guy we just picked up who's now the third string quarterback. I don't care if it's him.
Big week for Italians.
Yeah, but look, man, it doesn't matter to me. It's nothing, to do with their feelings. I want who is the starting quarterback that week to be successful.
Yeah, and that's why for me Rattler is different because, like you said, he compared to Haener or even compared to DiNucci, Rattlers is the one who seems to possess the tools to be molded into a starter in the NFL. And they're professionals. They should be able to take hard games on the chin. Yes. But you got to wonder how the more he's thrown out there into the wolves, if it should happen again this year, how much of an effect does that have on his development? And I don't want to see that, anything stunt his development.
I think much like we all agreed Olave should probably be on the shelf the rest of the season so he can sufficiently heal from the concussions. I think Rattler should be on the shelf the rest of the season so he can sufficiently recover from the pathetic showing that was those 3 games. I think Ralph on Saints Happy Hour podcast was talking about it, and it's like it was arguably the 3 worst quarterback performances in Saints history, which is not that far fetched.
It was hard to watch.
It was hard to watch. Sure. And look, as of right now, Hayner's a 4th round pick, a former 4th round pick who's getting his first start, so he's got a clean slate. Let's see what happens. Rattler's a former 5th round pick who had his 3 starts and shit the bed. So let's see what happens with Hayner. Probably shits the bed as well. And I don't think the reality changes that this franchise doesn't have its quarterback of the future on the roster right now.
Agree with that, 100%. So,
but I know we got one more segment left to hit.
Yep.
What
would that be?
Why don't you tell the good folks at home?
Let me just check about that. I think you might be referring to Corey's Locks, brought to you by the Norton Leatherman Spine Center.
That would be it.
Yeah. We
got to add another link to that chain, buddy. Another lock.
Yeah, earned lock.
You've earned one, so you've earned the one that we spotted you.
Another earned lock.
Right.
Let me work on that. Just give me 1 second. Corey's Locks, and we're back, coming off a successful weekend where we got the earned lock of the week. Trying to get on camera here. So, what are we going with this week? Saints Commanders. Jaden Daniels coming back home to Louisiana. Well, his adopted home anyway. Wouldn't say coming back home to the Dome. It's not as friendly a confines as it was for Joe Burrow. Maybe not as many memories in the Dome for Jaden as a former LSU QB as you had for Joe Burrow. But a lot of people are predicting huge success for Jaden Daniels this week. They're thinking he's going to light up the scoreboard, throw it all around the yard, run all over the place. But one thing that's correct is he is going to throw it all over the yard. And when he throws it all over the yard, Max said he's been careful with the ball, that he hasn't really been throwing interceptions. But your lock for this week is that when he's throwing it around the yard, he's going to throw one to our guys. And it might even be the Honey Badger. So your lock of the week is an interception from Jaden Daniels, because we're trying to get these realistic opportunities, options you can bet on to lock it in. You got plus odds on Jaden throwing an interception. The odds make sure having them at less than 1, okay? But as a little bonus, I'm going to say he throws it to the Honey Badger. So
you're saying both of those. Interception, Honey Badger gets it.
Yeah. It's a lock if either one hits. But I think
don't hedge your bet. It's got to be, come on. Either one, go roll with it. Go big.
We're going big. If we go big, don't be coming at me next week saying you can't get a lock, dude. You can't get a lock, dude. Because I'm trying to give you a lock with Jaden Daniels interception. Point blank. That's it. So that's your lock. If I get Honey Badger, it counts as 2 locks. We're talking about locks on the chain. We get one if it's interception from Jaden Daniels, because he really shouldn't throw one in this game.
You only get one. You're only eligible for 1 a week, sir. So
you make it just
pick the interception, or just pick the interception to the Honey Badger. I'm
picking the interception. We're going for a lock. I need something that y'all can lock in. Y'all need something you can lock in.
There you go.
So it's an interception from Jaden Daniels this week. I got a sneaky suspicion it's going to the Honey Badger, but your lock is interception by Jaden Daniels.
There we go. That'll work.
So that's your lock of the week.
Well, take us home.
Well, we got your lock. You got your predictions. It's looking like it could be an ugly one. So I got my jacket on. I'm ready for the bad weather. Coming in the Dome. Got our vintage Saints jacket. We're going to need a vintage performance, like vintage Drew Brees type era to pull out an upset in this one. But more than likely, it's going to be vintage the other way. Think 70s, early 80s. Classic, vintage, drag out where our Saints are on the losing end. Hopefully not. But that's what it's looking like. Maybe we get an upset. Maybe Hayner surprises. But we'll see. But until then, we'll come back next week with our quick recap before we do our typical go off on a riff type tangent episode. We'll think of a good topic for that one. But until the
I've got one loaded in the chamber. It's gonna be good.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll see you on the recap episode. Maybe their Saints getting upset. But until then, thanks again for listening to another episode of the 28-3 podcast. Who dat?
Who dat?
What a comeback!